Hi everyone, welcome on the Head of Sales Diary podcast, and today we have special guest Alex, and we're gonna speak about, I don't say it's a problem, but it's a challenge of leading a sales team without a sales background. Before you meet Alex in person, a few facts. So first, he's a co-founder of ColdIQ, and I am a big fan of the guys, like not only of Alex, but overall of the team, because they are doing an amazing job on LinkedIn, everyone. And they managed to reach 6 million in ARR just in 2 years. He had a first startup, and this correlates with the post I have made recently about an MBA, that not everybody needs an MBA to succeed. Sometimes you need an experience which Alex had by founding the first startup for 50,000, making one sale for 2.92 cents, yeah, in dollars or whatever, but it was the biggest, the best MBA he has ever received. He has built ColdIQ as #1 sales agency, and they're helping 300 companies generate pipeline with AI-powered outbound and amazing tools. He advocates hiring for curiosity and ownership over experience. And he's passionate about breaking 9 to 5 working schedule. So everybody's working remote, and this is something we're going to speak a lot about today. So hi, Alex, and thank you for coming.
What an introduction. Thanks a lot for having me. Very excited for the conversation.
Before we start with getting to the questions to the topic, can you share a little bit about your experience? So you said that you quit your dream job, which almost killed your potential. And what made you leave the safe zone and build your own sales agency instead?
Yeah, so it's a very long story. I think I had a bit of an uncommon 20s. I'm 29. I started my 20s in a very classical path. I did a business school back in Brussels, back in Belgium, where I'm from. And the rest of my 20s have been testing a lot of things. I did some travel for a year, did a gap year for 12 months. Before that, I was doing some coding bootcamp where I wanted to learn about computer programming because I knew that I wanted to work in tech. After all the travel, I ended up moving to Germany. I started my career in Leipzig, lived there for a year, then I moved to Berlin for 5 years. And during those 5 years, I've just worked for a bunch of different startups. So I was usually staying between 1.5 years and 2 years. And at 27, I think I was working in one of the coolest tech company you could work for. I was working for WorldCoin. So that's the other company of Sam Altman, the co-founder of OpenAI that everybody knows. Mm-hmm. And at that age, I thought I had finally made it. Like for my entire 20s, I was always thinking, like, okay, what could be the best company I could work for, where I would get like a lot of validation to be like, wow, that's like working with a lot of super smart people. A company was very well respected. Everyone around me was extremely smart. I was getting paid like a lot of money. But despite all of this, after 2 years in the role, I was feeling less and less excited about the company. I felt that my impact wasn't really what I wanted to be. I think when you're like in your 20s in big companies, you still need to kind of put a certain amount of time to start like climbing the ladder. And so at 27, I felt a bit of like just a gear in the system. Like all the big decisions were being taken above me. I could try to like give my opinion, but they were not always like really listened to. And at that time, I was still very close friend with Michel, who is like my business partner. And I remember one of the big conversations we've had when I was 2 years in the role. I was calling him from a phone booth. We're always catching up every 1 or 2 months. And on that day, I told him like, yeah, I don't really know like what I want to do. Like I'm 27, I feel I could be doing more. And on that day, Mich told me like a very important conversation we've had that gave me like a lot of motivation. He told me that in our friend group, he always saw me as the person that could compete with him in business. But if I were to stay as an employee, I would never really compete with him on anything. And I think that conversation really like aroused something inside of me. And after that, I was like, you know what? I'm 27. These are like the years to take the risk. So I'm just gonna like quit my job, and I don't really know what I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna do something for myself, and I'm just gonna try like a bunch of things. And so at that time, it felt like the biggest decision I had to take. In the end, like it all worked out pretty well for us.
Mm-hmm. Well, never regret it for sure, given the results you have.
Indeed.
Actually, like you didn't come from a very traditional, like sales background. When you start as an AE, then you're like an SDR, AE, head of sales. How did you end up in a sales business?
Yes, it's all happened a bit randomly. Like I come from more of like a operational background in a lot of companies. I was usually building systems, hiring people, scaling team, building automation. And the way I joined Michel at ColdIQ was that at that time he had created ColdIQ 2 years before, not as an agency, but more of as an affiliate website. So he wanted to build a tool directory. And so the first initial idea with ColdIQ was to make it a website where people can go to compare all the best sales tools out there. And around early 2023, the SEO traffic started to pick up on the website, and a lot of people started to ask him to help with outbound, because a lot of people were seeing all those tools and were a bit overwhelmed. They're like, okay, I really love the directory you have built, but I need help to actually implement those tools. And so when Mish gave me the pep talk that made me like leave my job, at that time I really wanted to do something with AI, because I felt that was like the biggest opportunity for our generation. And then slowly I started working with Mish. He had heard about that tool called Clay that everyone was getting very excited about. And then he told me, he's like, hey, I feel that this is going to be big. Like I feel that the needs for companies needing to implement Clay is just gonna get massive. So why don't you like join me? I will teach you like how to use Clay, and let's implement it in companies. And so that's how we got started. Like more than a cold email agency, it was more like, okay, how do we implement Clay for B2B companies? So for me, I love tech. I'm a bit technical. I love like nerding out about new tools. And so it was like the perfect combo. Like I had never heard about sales, had never been in a sales calls before, but I really liked the technicality of Clay. And so that's how I got into it.
Do you sell now yourself to the customers?
I did for the first year and a half of the business. So that's actually a very funny story as well, like the first sales call, my first ever sales call. So I joined Mish at ColdIQ around April 2023. And around July and August, I also decided to start posting on LinkedIn, because at that time, Mish had already got started for a few months. And then we saw like the results it was bringing. So I was like, okay, let's just double it. Like if it works for him, I'm just going to start posting as well. And after 2-3 weeks, I started receiving like the first inbound requests. People were DMing me on LinkedIn. We started to have like a lot of people booking meetings on the website. And at that time, Mish was taking most of the sales call, and I was more like in the back end, setting up the operation, setting up like all the systems. But then we had so many sales calls that we were like, okay, we need to start splitting it. And I'm a very theoretical person. Like I love reading, like I love really understanding the theory. And so the first time that I had to take a sales calls, I was telling Mish like, oh no, but join on the call. Like I first want to like learn a lot about sales. I want to read like 10 books. I want to learn objection handling and like all the theory behind it. And then Mish was like, okay, shut up. Like it's fine. We have so many inbound requests. Even if you fuck it up, we are gonna have enough meetings to make it work. So at least you can learn from it. And so I went into the first sales calls being like a bit stressed, being like, well, what I'm gonna say, the guy's gonna ask me like so many questions. And so I went in and I did what any human would do to lead a conversation. I would just like ask a lot of questions. I don't know if you've read the book, like How to Win Friends and Influence People from Dale Carnegie. It says people just love to talk about themselves in a normal conversation. So I was like, I'm just gonna run the sales call the same way I would have a normal conversation. So I went to do that sales calls and just started to ask a bunch of questions like, oh, what is the problem at the moment? Like, how are you running outbound? What were the results? And what did you try before this? And somehow, after maybe 10, 15 minutes of the conversation, the guy was like, hey, I think you guys can really help. Send me the Stripe link and I will pay today. And I remember on that day, I was like, wow, like this is actually sales. It's just asking a bunch of questions, like just offering some free advice to someone, and then the guy is paying on the spot. And so that's how I had my first close one on my first ever sales call. And then after that, we started to split 50-50 all the inbound meetings we've had. And so that's how I learned how to sell. I think we've been in a very luxurious position as well, because with all the content we put out, usually people come quite warm in the meetings, but it was kind of a very interesting experience for me to realize that actually sales wasn't that complex, that at the end of the day, if you just ask the right questions and truly try to help the person in front of you, like is not that complicated.
Well, it's also like, you have this founder's mindset. You're definitely entrepreneurial. And from what I see, founders sell the best. So founders are the best sellers because they're passionate, they like what they do, they believe in what they're doing. With regard to your first startup, like, can you give a little bit of an input? What was it? And what did it teach you in terms of like leadership and the mistakes not to make in the future?
Yeah, so my first startup idea was early 2020 when I had just moved to Berlin, and I was at that time very interested in everything biohacking. I was like a big fan of Tim Ferriss and like self-improvement and how you could like make your brain operate faster. And so at that time, one of the big concepts was the idea of taking nootropics as supplements. So nootropics are all the supplements you can take for brain enhancements. So I don't know if you've seen the movie Limitless with Bradley Cooper, but that's a bit the idea. Like, unfortunately, the drug doesn't exist, but there's a lot of people kind of trying to figure out how you can enhance your thinking power. And so at that time, I had the idea to do something similar to a protein bar, but rather than having a protein bar with a lot of protein for like muscle growth, I was like, what if I create an office snack with a nootropic to enhance like the thinking capabilities of office workers? Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is that I probably spent 9 months on the idea. Like we got super excited. We hired some like food scientists. We went into some labs. We were like creating different recipes. And so for 9 months, I worked on the idea without any market feedback. So I was so convinced about my idea. I was like, wow, that's a genius idea. And you know how it is as well. When you explain to your friend and family and you tell them like, yeah, but that idea, and you're like so excited that passion is very contagious. So if you go to someone and you like start speaking with a lot of excitement, people are going to be like, oh, wow, like that sounds like an amazing idea. But the thing is that as long as people don't pay, you don't really know if it's a good idea or not. And so for 9 months, everyone around me was like, wow, amazing idea, go for it. That's going to be amazing. And then after 9 months of having worked with like all those labs, all those food scientists, we finally built a website, we run some ads, and nobody cares. Like I think we had, as we said it in the intro, we've had one sale. And that's when I realized that you can have a great product if you have no distribution. The rest is not going to work. And so that's what we see with ColdIQ today as well. It's like you have so many of those GTM agencies, AI sales agencies, like the barrier to entry is extremely low. Tomorrow, everyone can go watch a few YouTube video and launch an agency. But what really separates people that are winning from the rest is people that are actually really good at the distribution. And so that was like the biggest learning from the first startup experience is first distribution before the product. And second is try to get market validation as fast as possible. So if you have an idea of a service, of a product, try to confront yourself to the market as fast as possible to actually understand if people are ready to pay for what you had envisioned.
So basically with ColdIQ, that what made you successful? Like validation of the market or something different?
I think it's the amount of eyeballs we manage to capture on us, right? It's like right now there is a war on attention. I think that eyeballs is like the most scarce resource. Everyone is trying to compete on social media. Your feed are like just full of people posting content. And so what really separates you from the rest is like, are you able to attract clients without spending thousands in ads, right? Because if you look at ad spends, the price per meeting is just going up, up, up. And so being able to generate a lot of eyeballs on the business is probably what allowed us to scale as fast, because we didn't have to spend so much time on like hunting for clients. We've had so many eyeballs generated on ColdIQ that, to give you an idea, I think last month we booked like 120 meetings just from our LinkedIn content. So,
But like, I will tell a little bit, so maybe not everybody knows, and this is actually how I understood, like, wow, the guys, something they're doing is super great. So you're motivating all the salespeople to create content on LinkedIn. So basically to grow their brand awareness, to be popular on LinkedIn. And then you do this in a kind of a competition. So you pay a reward every quarter or something.
order, yeah.
For the one who is getting the most of the impressions.
Yes, correct. So our goal is really to almost have a media company on top of the agency, right? We really want to incentivize everyone to really grow their personal brand, because the more famous they become, the more visibility it also gets on the business, right? So it's great for them because, of course, they're not going to work with us forever. Like at some point, people are going to have like other ambitions. They might join another company. They might want to start their own thing. But it's going to be very different to join another company or start your own company with like 20, 30K followers on LinkedIn. It's going to give you another type of firepower if you're like someone that nobody knows. And so what we realize is that at some point, my personal brand and the personal brand of Michel, my business partner, we are going to hit a ceiling, right? We're already posting almost every day. We're already investing a lot on like great infographics. We're like making a lot of research. It's like at some point you're going to hit some sort of ceiling of like how far you can get your own LinkedIn content. And so what we realize is that to go from me and Michel posting 5 times a week, how do we 10x the results that we get from LinkedIn? And the obvious answer is to just incentivize the rest of the team to also start posting as much quality content as me and my business partner are doing. And so that's why we started to think about like, what would people care about to actually start posting? And one thing is to grow the personal brand. A lot of people that have like big personal ambition, they want to build a brand for themselves, but then it's also giving cash incentive, like show me the incentive and I will show you the outcome. And so if you start telling people like, okay, if you generate X amount of impression, I will give you X amount of money, it's also very motivating for people. Because you also need to always remember that when you try to incentivize people to post, this takes time from the main task of their job as well. If you are asking them to spend time writing a post, syncing with the designer to build the infographic, this is time that you ask away from like the main responsibility in the job. And so you need to find great incentive to justify them taking the time to work on this.
Well, I personally think that this is a genius approach. And now I want to challenge you. So let's say I'm a head of sales saying like, okay, I don't want my employees to build a personal brand because they will like in 6 months, they will leave getting a better job. And they spend time on their personal brand, not investing time into the real work they have to do. What would you say to such head of sales?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a scarcity mindset that at the end of the day, if someone want to leave a job, they will leave the job. And so for us, like how thinking has always been, it's on us as business owners to make ColdIQ the best opportunity for everyone in the company. And if at some point it's not the case anymore, then that's completely fair that the person is going to look elsewhere to change job. And so for us, we are like really investing a lot of time to really understand what do our people care about, and we want to give them more of this, so we make sure that they stay with us. And for the second part of the question about spending time on developing the personal brand, it's time not spent on the main job. As a seller, once you start having some sort of brand, people are going to consider you very differently. Like we see it a lot, is like once you start to have someone that has like 10, 15, 20K followers and they post valuable content, it's a very different approach. Like you don't come from a frame of like, please buy from me, but it's more like the person might already have seen the content and be like, oh, I really like the post you posted like a week ago. That was super insightful. Actually, I want the exact same thing for my company. We have seen it is like when we incentivize the sellers and are posting valuable content, the close rate also go up. So I think it's a very valuable investment time-wise to develop your personal brand as a seller.
You have also said that getting the leads for you, it's not a problem, and it's obvious with your media machine. Getting the right people is the hardest one. How do you find the right people to your team?
Yeah, that's usually what I explain as kind of more of a hidden benefit of posting content online is that you attract a lot of really talented people. If I look now, we're 31 FTE at ColdIQ. Probably half of the top people we've had, they all came inbound from LinkedIn DMs. So all the best people we've had in the companies, those people could work at a lot of different companies, but they usually don't apply on LinkedIn job posts. It's more like I've seen Michelle and Alex posting. Those guys look cool. We're like showing a bit the lifestyle. We're like a remote companies. Everyone's getting along. It's a very young energy. And so we get a lot of people being very attracted by the image that we're portraying about ourselves, but also about ColdIQ. And this attracts a lot of very talented people. If I look now at like all of our best people, they all came from a LinkedIn DM. None of them actually applied on a job post that a company will usually post, like go-to-market engineers on a LinkedIn job post. All of the best people, they all came either sending a DM to me or sending a DM to Michelle. So that's another benefit of posting content online.
So like as an advice to people looking for a job, would you recommend them not wait for a job post to be published, but just go to a hiring manager or to the owner and offer yourself?
Completely. For me, I really advocate for do the work for free before you ask for anything. And so if you can figure out what is a pain point, what is a needs of a specific person or of a specific company, and you can demonstrate that you can do this, and then you do part of the work for free to kind of show your value, that's how you're going to get the best opportunities in life. I always use the example of back in the day, one of our first employees, Dan, the way he approached it, it was like it was the first CSM we've ever had, so Customer Success Manager at ColdIQ. He came in, sent me a message, was like, hey, I really want to learn. You and Mish look like very cool guys. I would love to work with you guys. Let me work for you for free for 3 months. And then I want to launch my own agency. And then we directly took a call, started working with him, and then he ended up kind of growing the ladder, becoming like one of the most important person in the business. So I think it's a great approach to reach out and try to offer to help for free. And then a lot of great things are gonna happen from this.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk a little bit about outbound, because your approach you're doing at ColdIQ is very AI driven. And once you said that like everyone is doing outbound wrong. So what is the right way of doing outbound in 2025?
The first way I would answer this is that before starting to scale outbound with AI, you need to make sure that outbound is working for you at a small scale. The mistake I see a lot of companies doing is that everyone is getting super excited about all the new tools and using Clay and using Instantly and how you can send tens of thousands of emails. But the thing is that if you can make outbound work out of 100 manually written email, then it won't work with like 100,000 emails. And so usually what I like to explain to potential prospects or people that are asking questions is open a spreadsheet, create a list of your 100 dream clients, and then open Gmail and try to get a positive answer from those 100 prospects and write everything manually. If from those 100 manually written emails, you get less than 10% reply rate, scaling outbound won't work. And I think that's like the crux of the issue in 2025 is that a lot of companies get super excited about the tools and they think that the answer is the tools, but the answer is actually making sure that your outreach is relevant, that you figure out the right ICP, that you know how to address them, and that you're solving a real problem. And if those things are not true, you can put as much money, invest in as many tools as you want, it still won't work. And so really try to first figure out, can I make outbound work at a small scale before I invest in those like all those agencies, all those tools to actually scaling my outbound.
But like, is a 100 email threshold enough to test and understand if it's scalable or not?
I would say that if you take a list of even 50 dream prospects and you cannot get at least 5 positive answers from them, then at least you know that it's not time for you to scale outbound. Like I would really encourage everyone to do like manual testing before like getting overly excited about AI generated emails and like AI personalization and ICP scoring inside of Clay. Like all those things can come later, but first start with the basic. Like, can you get positive answer or people interested in what you have to offer at a very small scale before like investing any time or money into scaling it?
Mm-hmm. Well, with manual outreach, it's like clear. I'm sometimes, like for example, for us working we're a very big corporate, and we cannot use a lot of automation tools. Like we cannot do something a startup can due to like GDPR things, like parsing the data and everything. That's why the majority of outbound we do is almost manual. But the question would be like, with AI, there is a prejudice or more kind of a hater's approach. AI is soulless. AI is too massive. AI is like very irrelevant. And still, the manual or semi-manual outreach gives better results than purely AI automated. What would you say to that?
That's also how we implement AI applied to outbound, is that a lot of people think that when you look at all the Clay agencies and all the agencies implementing different tools, is that we just build lists of hundreds of thousands of prospects and just send like AI generated emails to all of them. But I would say right now the biggest use case for AI is actually not to write emails, but it's more to do data aggregation and data cleaning. So for example, what we do for a lot of really big companies is that we create scoring system where we're going to look at all the contacts in Salesforce, in HubSpot, and we're actually going to apply a score to all of those prospects. And based on the score, we're going to distribute for example, tier 1 prospect to the existing SDR team. So they're going to be able to do some manual outbound, and then potentially the tier 2 and tier 3 prospect. That's when it makes sense to push them to like an automated sequence using Instantly, using Lemlist, using Smart Leads. But you first want to use AI to actually filter and qualify all those leads. And I think that's the misconception that a lot of people have, is that, okay, I'm going to use AI, is going to be to one of those AI SDR when I'm just going to like write all those AI sounding emails and push it to thousands of prospects. But I think there is many other use cases for AI in sales at the moment.
So like AI is primarily a tool or an instrument to score and to enrich the leads you have, not like push automated messages to like 2,000 people.
I think that's a later stage. Like now we're getting closer. You have tool like Twain, for example, that starts to be extremely good at writing like emails with AI. But you need to make sure that you have the right data that you push to the tool, right? If you just ask Twain based on no data to write an email, it's going to sound a bit off. Like there's going to be not a lot of value into it. But if you do a lot of work inside of Clay and you start to figure out, okay, what are all the triggers that would make my outreach relevant? What are like all the data points that usually indicate that the prospect is in the market for the product or solution? And then you push that data inside of Twain, then the AI is going to be able to write a very relevant and interesting email. But I would say first, try to figure out like the right data points you want to look for about those leads. And once you have those data points, then you can use AI to actually draft an email. But the mistake that a lot of people do is that they don't feed any valuable data to like an LLM. They go on ChatGPT, they write me a sequence of 3 emails to send to that prospect. Yeah. Of course, it's gonna sound very off and very relevant.
Yeah. Well, from what you say, basically, like the process you're explaining, it will more or less replace SDRs in the organizations. Do you think it will, or still there's a room for SDRs to do their job?
I think we're going to need less SDR. I don't think that SDRs are going to be completely replaced. We are going to be able to do the same output with a less amount of people. Like I think now you start to have that new role in a lot of companies for the go-to-market engineer. That's how we call the people internally. Clay has a lot of like go-to-market engineer as well. And it used to that SDR would spend a lot of time on the very boring, inefficient tasks, starting to do the list building and making manual research, going to check on the LinkedIn profile of the prospect, researching the website, to actually have enough information to reach out to those people. I think all that research parts, data aggregation, data enrichment, all of this is going to be fully automated. Not with a tool like Clay, you can do all the data orchestration in a fully automated way. And so you might need one go-to-market engineers, and before you used to have 10 SDR doing all that research manually, and now maybe you're going to be able to do that with 3 SDRs. I think you still need them for like the very top tier prospect. You still might want to reach out to those people manually, to cold call them, to do like a multi-channel approach, but you're definitely gonna need less and less SDR. I think for the AE, it's a bit different because for closing deals, I think humans still want to talk to humans, but you won't need as many SDRs that you used to. So, you know, like the famous book, Predictable Revenue from Aaron Ross, where you had that equation, I think in the 2010, where it was like, I want to scale my revenue, I just need to hire more SDR. I think that equation doesn't hold true in 2025 anymore.
Yeah. I had this case like when I was working for a previous company and we were doing pretty great. And then the product manager comes over and says like, okay, you're doing pretty great. You have a great conversion. Can we just put more leads on the top of the funnel and you get like X10? I said like, it doesn't work like this, you know. It's not like hiring, oh, can we hire like more people and we get like X10 result? I say like, no, it's not working like this. It's just vice versa. For the SDRs, how does your team structure look like right now? So do you have SDRs or AEs for your clients and for your business?
No, so for the service we deliver, typically we take care of everything until the meeting is booked. So I would divide the outreach process in 3 different steps. The step number 1, I would call it the list building. So we're gonna figure out what is the ICP we wanna go after, and what are the prospects we actually want to reach out to. So we're going to look at like the different B2B database and figuring out the right list to reach out to. Step number 2, it's going to happen inside of Clay. So that's the data enrichment part. We're going to try to figure out by talking with the clients, what are the data points that would make the outreach relevant? Did the company hire recently? Is there any open jobs that would indicate a pain point? Is there some like company news? There's been like some company restructuring. So we're going to really try to understand what are the triggers that would make the outreach more relevant. So all of this is going to happen inside of Clay. And then the step number 3 is the outreach part. So we're going to send emails, we're going to send like LinkedIn messages, we might do some cold calling sometimes. And then we're going to try to get as many positive replies as possible. And then from those, usually we're never going to pitch for a meeting directly. We're going to try to ask the client to provide some lead magnets. What is something of value we can send to their prospect? And then from this, we're going to try to book meetings for them. So we take care of all the top of the funnel until the meetings is booked. And then that's back to the clients to then have like a sales team to attend those meetings and do what they do best, which is closing deals. Yeah.
Okay. And what are the channels which like bring, I know that it may differ from business to business, from market to market, but in general, is it more like email, LinkedIn, cold calling? What is performing best?
Yeah, it's very market dependent, right? Because it's like in SaaS, for example, a lot of people are on LinkedIn, a lot of people consume content, like people are super active on social media, whereas like if you go in different industries like agriculture or like industrial companies, those people, they don't really hang out on LinkedIn, right? Like you might try to send some LinkedIn messages, like you won't go really far. If the industry is a bit more old school, it makes sense to still have some like cold calling. Whereas like in trying to reach out to like a VP of sales of a VC-backed companies based in New York, good luck to get him to answer a cold call. Like with him, is going to be more like posting a lot of valuable LinkedIn content, trying to engage with him, get to see him to see your content and then reach out to him on LinkedIn. You're going to have a higher conversion than trying to cold call him. So we've worked with a lot of SaaS companies. So for us, it's still a mix of email and LinkedIn, but we've also had more like old school industries where there it makes sense to also have some cold calling steps in the sequence.
And have you thought of like you have built a great inbound machine for yourself? Have you thought of doing the same for the customers?
Yeah, we've done it for sales tech companies. The reason being is that it takes a lot of context to put some nice content out there. So about sales tech, we have enormous context, like we have depths of knowledge in the industry because we do it for ourselves. So it's very easy to write content for people in the same industry. But if there is someone coming from the food manufacturing industry, imagine the amount of time it would take for someone from our team to have the depth needed to put out valuable content. And so that's what we realized is a few months back, we had a lot of people coming in and being like, hey guys, love your content. Could you also start writing content for our leadership team? And so we tried for a few months, but what we realized is that if the industry is too far off from ours, it just takes too long and there's too much friction to actually create quality content. And so now we still do it for people that are like in AI, that are like in sales, tech. That's something we can do because we do it for ourselves. But if the industry is too far us from ours, then usually we say like, we can teach you how to build a system around content creation, but writing the content for you is just too time consuming because then we would need to run so many interviews to have enough context to write that content.
Yeah, that's true. With regard to your team, everybody's fully remote.
Correct. Yeah, we have one office in Barcelona, but most of the team is remote.
How do you track this kind of, like especially with the younger generation, with generation, like not the ones like from my age, a little bit elder. How do you track this kind, result versus accountability versus freedom? So what is the balance?
I'm a big believer that with the right incentive, you're going to get the right outcome. So for the young generation, it's very like glamorous to be considered an owner, an entrepreneur. Like, everyone want to have like his own mini business. And so we try to emulate this with everyone in the company. So for every single role, people have a base salary, and then they're going to have a variable on top. So not only salespeople, because of course for sales is very obvious, but to give you an example, the most common role we have at ColdIQ is the go-to-market engineers. So these are people building campaigns for clients. But there what we created is that they have a double incentive. They have a percentage of the monthly retainer that the client is paying us. If they manage a client, they get a percentage of this, and that percentage is going up month after month. So they have an incentive to get more clients, and they have an incentive to keep the clients for as long as possible. And so I always take accountability on this, that it's on me to create the right incentive for people to care about the work they do. Because at the end of the day, you can have ping pong table and free pizza and all the cool company perks in an office. People don't care that much. Like now we just did a survey about like a people in the company, and people seem to be quite happy. And the biggest factor is that they want to make more money. Like everyone, they can figure out for themselves like how they want to spend the money. At the end of the day, your role is just to try to provide the best opportunity. And so for me, what I do is never trying to increase the base salary, but always giving more incentive for people to want to do more. And then I almost feel that the micromanagement is not needed anymore, because you can see really fast someone who's performing versus someone who's not performing. And then the decision is very binary.
And how much then time do you give a person to show a result?
Usually I would say 3 months when we hire someone. Like now we have a pretty good interview process. So if people made it till the end and they receive an offer, I usually want to give 3 months, because we've had the cases in the past where like the first months, people are a bit overwhelmed. They really struggle to keep up, because we're like a very fast moving company. There's a lot of people doing a lot of stuff. Everyone is excited about a lot of different projects. And so the first month can sometimes be a bit overwhelming. And so we don't want to act too fast either, to be like, okay, the person is taking a bit longer than the average. So usually now we give 90 days. If after 90 days we still have hesitation about the fit of the person, then it's time to take a decision.
Okay. Well, sounds like it's pretty fun to work in your company, and especially while attracting young talents. I know I'm hiring people, and it's like the hardest job for me, to find the right people for your team. Especially, I'm not from this market, and, I have a lot of connections in Ukraine, but in here, I'm just building it. And I say like, okay, it's so hard to find people in here in Belgium overall. So I see like your attitude is like pretty great. Let's go back, like this will be the last question, and maybe it will be linked to your piece of advice you give to people who are listening to this podcast. If you get back to your well-paid job you had, like to this comfort zone where you can, for example, build a career, progress in the corporate world and everything, what would be like one piece of advice you would give yourself back then? Maybe to the one who is still hesitating, maybe to the one who is still thinking, what's the right choice? You definitely know that it's going to be successful, but still, what would you tell this person back then?
Grow your personal brand without any hesitation. I think having a personal brand in 2025 is what's giving you the biggest leverage. So even if you're not sure about the next step, you're not sure like what's going to be the next company you're going to work for, if maybe you're going to work for yourself, having some sort of reputation in an industry is going to open so many doors. And it's something you can do while you're still at your job. Figure out like some topic of interest, figure out some topics where you really want to develop mastery, and just document what you're learning about that specific topic. I think that will open so many new opportunities that you don't even realize you could get. I always explain that for me, having a personal brand is just like an increase in luck exposure. Like there's always going to be luck in life, but I think by putting yourself out there, you just increase the surface of exposure to luck, and somehow there's just amazing things happening to you once you start putting yourself out there. So that would be the number one advice without any hesitation.
Amen. I truly support it, and thank you very much for great, I would say, interview, for sharing your experience. I think it should inspire many people, to those that who are still hesitating whether they should do it or not, to take the right decision.
Thanks a lot for having me. It was a really great chat.
Thank you.